All right, welcome into Content is for Closers, where each episode we talk with business owners, marketers, and entrepreneurs alike about how they use content to close more business. Carlton, how was my intro this week? Rate it 1 to 10, please.
I'm going to probably go with the 7 just because you had to try it again.
But, I did. I got excited about the welcome part, and I was so focused on that I forgot what gets said afterwards. So that's actually a higher
like a
score
bogey, you just have to take a couple points off for that.
Bubba always hits the second shot.
Did I say that right? I don't even know golf terminology. I was just
no, you didn't. Bogey. I just let it go. If par is 4 on a hole, bogey is 1 more than that. So
okay. My goal is to offend one group of people every episode.
Well, Mickey, our guest today, Mickey Cloud, is a big golfer, so he'll take a note of that.
Great
I'm sure.
offense.
I think what you're talking about was a mulligan.
Mulligan, yes. How could I forget a mulligan?
It's all right. It's okay. For lack of introduction, because we haven't done it at this point, I'm your host, Adam Vasquez. He's Carlton Riffle, and we're here for episode 4. As I mentioned, Mickey Cloud from the Sasha Group is going to be joining us. We had a really good interview, but before we get to that, let's play the lame game. What do you got for us this week, Carlton?
This interview is pretty good because we're talking about TikTok, Adam's favorite social media app. If you were to get famous, like TikTok famous on TikTok for something, Adam, what do you think it would be? What would be your shtick?
Well, I feel, if I knew, I'd probably do it, because I don't know if I actually do. I do like TikTok, and especially for business purposes, as we get into with Mickey. But yeah, I don't know. I'd probably do something around maybe trick basketball shots in business clothes, or some, the business guy who hits trick shots, something like that.
Add another element to the play.
Yeah, you gotta make it interesting. What would you get famous for?
I just had a baby. He's really cute. Maybe he could get famous just doing dad things. Dad just trick shots. There you go. Just trick shots with a child in one hand.
Wow. A lot of things going on there.
Adam's going to be in a business suit with each of his boys in each hand.
Oh, man.
And doing trick shots. No, that or else pranks. I always liked pulling pranks growing up. So I
could see that for sure.
Something that would be fun.
Yeah, you have a very Dennis the Menace vibe to you. I could see that coming up for sure.
My other question for you, Adam, is could you just give me an intro with Gary V? Can you set that meeting up for tomorrow? I was just curious.
We talked about this with Mickey today. Yeah, obviously Mickey works with Gary, so we got into a little bit of that. Also, just how they do content testing, which I think a lot of people are going to find interesting. Vayner's sort of famous for that, and Mickey got into some of the weeds of how that happens. And we talked about some creative hits that have done really well, both for Vayner and at the Sasha Group, and how those came to be. So I really enjoyed the interview from my perspective. And I think a lot of people will in the audience as well.
Awesome. Let's jump in.
All right. We've got Mickey Cloud here on Content is for Closers. Thanks for joining us, Mickey.
Thanks, Adam. Great to be here.
So first of all, I feel like I need to start off with an apology. Obviously, I know you because you used to be my boss at Vayner. When we worked together, we used to play basketball in the mornings. And I don't know if I verbalized it, but whenever you would stretch, I would always think that's such an old man move. I don't understand why he's stretching so much. And now I'm sitting here 4 or 5 years later, and I can actively feel my hamstrings just from sitting here. I'm not even doing anything. So
yeah, welcome to my life now. Our age, you caught up in our age gap. Now, you got to stretch. You got to get sleep the night before. You got to drink a lot of water. Yep. There's a lot of things to get going before the 6 a.m. basketball rolls up.
Yeah, those were great times. I always remember also thinking it was weird how dudes would opt out as the night went on, if we didn't have numbers because of other choices. And now definitely feel that, as well.
Yeah, we were a pretty good backcourt though, of similar combo guards. I thought trying hard on defense, those types of things.
Yeah, effort was our unfair advantage versus
definitely not skill
versus some of the teams we played. But anyway, just need to apologize for that. So we did work together. It was VaynerMedia at the time. Obviously now you are the Sasha Group team, but maybe for those who are uninitiated or just don't have context, could you give a little bit of background on Vayner and Sasha and how they work together?
Yeah, so the Sasha Group is a consultancy kind of meets agency that specifically focuses on entrepreneurs, growth stage companies, and challenger brands that are in the mid-market. And so we spun the Sasha Group out from VaynerMedia. VaynerMedia is a full-service advertising agency that works with the biggest brands in the world and has a global kind of presence. And so, the processes and the machine that's built to service Budweiser and GE and Pepsi, and it's a big tanker to support those types of big clients. And not only that, VaynerMedia is getting bigger and bigger assignments in that world. So they're now managing $50 million ad budgets, and they're doing 4 Super Bowl spots in 1 year, that kind of thing. Those really big assignments. And so, we were just seeing that we had so many prospects, so many people coming to us where they were saying, our budget's not $500,000, our budget is $50,000. What can you do for us? And after a couple of years of saying, I just don't have anything for you, me and some of the folks in Chattanooga office started saying, well, hey, we can do some consulting for you. We can do some training. We could do a little content shoot. We started just playing around with kind of different offerings. And at the same time, we had a group in New York that was doing, this was like 2017, 18. At the same time, I had a group in New York that was doing similar things where it was an offering specific for entrepreneurs or training classes for entrepreneurs, things like that. And so finally, at the end of 2018, we decided, all right, let's spin all of those things out and have just an offering that's just specific for entrepreneurs, growth stage companies, and kind of challenger brands. And so that was at the beginning of 2019. So now we're 2.5 years later, and we've doubled in size from a headcount perspective. We've grown 50, 60, 75% from a revenue perspective. So the day we launched, and Gary Vaynerchuk, our CEO chairman, tweeted out that there's now an offering for entrepreneurs. I mean, we had 6,000 new business inquiries in the first 2 days.
That's incredible.
So like part of the challenge was like, all right, how do we go through and like actually vet these folks a little bit and start to build offers and products that will match kind of the stage of business they're at, if they've got an in-house team, if they only want to work with agencies, like all the different things that come up in this world, and how do we provide value?
I think we have a similar heart for small businesses that way. And so this is kind of an aside, but you also have your educational arm, right? Or
Yep.
offering or product. Talk a little bit about that, just what that is.
Yeah. So we have 3 kind of core offerings. We have education, consulting, and then branding and marketing, which are kind of bucketed together. So the education side is we started with an in-person kind of curriculum. It was a full day, 10-hour day at VaynerMedia, VaynerX offices, where you got a real look under the hood at our philosophies, how we think about the world, how to approach digital marketing, brand building, things like that. And you got an hour with Gary where you could ask 10, 15 minutes worth of questions to Gary and get one-on-one time with him. Once the pandemic started happening, we've switched that to be a 4-hour virtual session. So we call this the 4Ds. It stands for Digital Deep Dive and Discovery. And now, we've had several hundred people go through that program now. I think the virtual one's $4,000 ticket now. The in-person one's $12,000. Like it's a high ticket value because it's a small room. It's like 8 to 10 people in the room, and you're getting real hands-on attention. And so we also launched a content membership where it's a platform called Stork. Think of it as like access to some of those forward-thinking brand building, digital marketing for the cost of a gym membership. So it's $25 a month. You're getting video content that comes out on Monday. You're getting articles about that topic that come out on Wednesday, and then you're getting an Ask Me Anything kind of Q&A session with an expert from our team on Friday. So it's all built into an email newsletter and a private Facebook group platform where you're getting this content where it talks about writing copy for social or buying ads or how to manage an internal team that's creating content, or how to hire, like all the kind of practical, tactical things that entrepreneurs, marketers have to go through when they're really standing things up at the very beginning. So it's $300 for the year kind of product that really almost any business should be able to afford if they're looking to kind of put in the work.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't know the pricing behind it. We've kind of touched bare bones on some of those topics. Obviously, $25 a month is super low barrier to entry. And I think that's kind of why I wanted to bring you on to talk specifically about creative, because I know you all have a heart for being able to apply the strategies and processes or whatever, those things that you have learned from working with these world-class brands to small businesses. Before we get to that, one quick aside.
Yeah.
Still to this day, people ask me because they see VaynerMedia on LinkedIn, like, oh, can you just intro me to Gary? Absolutely not. First of all, I don't have that type of relationship with him. Secondly, look at the pricing that it costs to have these types of attention. I don't understand why people think that's a thing, but I just wanted to get that out.
Even with me these days, it's like, hey, you're gonna have to give me a couple bullet points. We're gonna have to I'm gonna have to vet it to see how much of this should I put on Gary's radar, and then sometimes it's just finding the people in our ecosystem to send them to if it's not Gary themselves. But yeah, sometimes it's just the blatant ask of can I get to Gary? It's that's not how this works.
Anyway, it's nothing to do with what we're talking about, but just wanted to say that. So,
although I will say that the best way to get to Gary for people that are listening is just be in his mentions on Twitter, be present in his community, and he might find the time because he interacts with so many people that you might just be one of the 30 people when he's got 10 minutes to be firing away, comment, like talking to people on Twitter. So it's not that he's inaccessible. It's just that
No. It's
his
a good
time
point.
has a lot of demands on it.
Yeah, and you putting in a little bit of effort, I feel like goes a long way rather than just being like, "Hey, hook me up." So when you come to the process, to the meeting, whatever, and it's time to talk to these companies who, like you said, don't necessarily have $500,000 in budget in order to create content, but know it's important, have seen their customers or their prospects or their competitors benefiting from doing this. What is the process you all take with some of that context in mind to say, okay, let's suss out what you can make, and what is going to be something that's impactful for your business when it comes to investing in content creation?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. First is there's some like philosophies that we want to share with them to kind of start grounding them in how to think about creating content. So the first is that every company in the world is a media company. Every company in the world is a publisher. When you're a media company or a publisher, you're thinking about content that brings value to the audience, not necessarily just content that's about your business and what you can do. It's not about advertising what you can do. It's about creating content that brings value in consumer. And that could be a prospect, that could be someone who's actually could buy something from you, whatever that looks like. And then when you think about content that brings value to that audience, it's about entertainment, right? It's about education, or it's about solving a problem for that audience. You think about the landscaping company, right? That's out there. It's what type of content is going to bring value to someone who is thinking about the landscaping and maybe haven't even started thinking about landscaping, but are thinking about they just bought a home.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can think about like, what are the things you can do by yourself where you never need to hire a landscaping service, right? And so like that is a bit of a mind twist for people to think around. Like, I'm going to put out content that tells people how not to use my service. It's like, yeah, because it's you being transparent, it's you being authentic, it's you showing off that you actually know what you're talking about. It shows off thought leadership. For a lawyer, the 10 things you need to know before you call an attorney after you get in whatever legal matter you might be looking up information about, or for a real estate agent, right? Like when people are in the market to buy a home, if they're thinking about that, they're thinking about what neighborhood do I want to live in. So why are you not the person that is reviewing all of the elements that make up a neighborhood? The schools, you're interviewing the people on the school board, the teachers, you're looking at the food and dining, the coffee shops, the restaurants, the bars, the activity, what are people looking for? You're looking at like the family stuff, review the parks, rank the best parks in your town, your neighborhood. Like there's so much content that is valuable to people. You got to put them first,
Yeah.
and then think about how your business works into that.
Yeah, I feel like the landscaping company, we keep using it in every episode. So maybe we need to start something around that. But yeah, the idea being like, no one cares about seed variants, right? Or like, no one really cares if their lawn's actually healthy. Very few people care about that. It's much more about, do my neighbors who live in this nice neighborhood like the way that my lawn looks in relation to theirs, or things like that, right? So
even if it's just helpful, like maybe people do care about seed variants, and so you can tell them the differences between the ones that are good for the environment and the ones that are bad for the environment, or the ones that like you can make at home with your X, Y, and Z things that you find in your kitchen. Like there's still even content around seed variants that could bring value to someone who wants to dive in there and learn about it.
Cool. So you start off by obviously putting the customer first at the center of your ideation session, or whatever that looks like. I know something we did when I was working with you all was we would take ideas and put them into the market in some sort of like bake off or something like this. And what's the scaled down version of that? How can small businesses test these ideas to see what's resonating?
Yeah. So there's a couple things, because one, you have to think about, one of the next questions we'll typically ask someone is like, what's their capacity for creating content? Like who's doing it right now? What type of skill sets do they have? And try to debunk that it's difficult to make content, right? There's a lot of ways to scale content creation. And so there's some things like tools like need to have on hand in order to create content, right? So Canva, for image templates, and using that to kind of scale so that not only the graphic designer can be the person that's creating content, or Pixel Cut is another app where it's essentially like no skill photo editing. And so there's finding ways to kind of scale content creation. So I'll ask about those capabilities. Once I get a sense of like who's creating content, what's going on, how can they put out more? What VaynerMedia does for Budweiser is they put out hundreds of pieces of content a week, and let the market kind of help dictate that. Well, all right, how do you start creating tens of content per week? How, and so some of it starts with like the capabilities, the tools. And then the other part is like, can we build a framework that allows for allows for you to create more content? And so one of those frameworks, and it's what we're doing right now, we kind of call it the show model, right? What's a recurring piece of pillar content that can be long form? It could be a video podcast, it could be an interview, it could be just the real estate thing I was talking about, where you go around and review all the different businesses in the neighborhood. So you got something that is episodic, potentially. It is something that is a familiar, you can come back to the well a couple times, and then you sweat those assets, right? What's the 37-second rant that someone goes on in that show that could go viral on LinkedIn or on TikTok? And you make sure you cut that out. That's one piece of content. What are the other 2 to 10 clips that are from that interview that are going to be really insightful, interesting, valuable to that end consumer? What are the 5 to 15 social image assets that could be used as quote cards or as just good pieces of content? How do you transcribe that conversation and turn it into a blog post? So literally trying to squeeze as much content out of that one filming that you did, that one production of one hero piece of content. And then you've gone from, all right, we did one thing to now we've got 40 pieces of content just from that one thing. And so either the frameworks and mechanisms that allow you to create more content. So once the content is then created, then it's a matter of like letting the market tell you what's working, right? So like, let's leverage the platforms that are giving you organic distribution right now. In the B2B world and business side, that's LinkedIn, although it can be more for B2C and things like that. It's TikTok, which has, relevance across both B2C and B2B. I would argue there's amazing landscapers on TikTok right now that are just showing people with video how to trim your hedges, how to put down a new sidewalk, like all the different things that if you want to learn how to cook a great recipe, like TikTok is a great place to go right now to do that. And so you see what's kind of naturally getting organic engagement. You can see, put out a video on LinkedIn or TikTok, and you can see, did I get 25 comments from that, 1,000 views on that, or did I get 2 comments on that and 100 views on that? And so you can start to see like, oh, when I post about this topic, it's getting more organic distribution on those 2 specific platforms right now. You're not going to get a lot of organic distribution on Instagram right now or on Twitter, on some of these other platforms. You will in like Facebook groups, but not if you're just posting from your Facebook profile. And so how do you leverage the platforms that are giving you organic distribution to see what's doing well? And then you double down and make more content on the things that are working.
I'm really glad you use those specific numbers, although I know you're just talking about hypotheticals, but I think sometimes people get so caught up in, oh, I didn't get thousands of views on this first one, because they've heard that that's what happens when content goes viral. But to your point, TikTok is giving away views right now. And so if you see it go to 25 and your other pieces are doing 10, there's a signal there for you to be able to pay attention to. And I'm also glad you called out TikTok. I think because maybe of the customers that would be interested in working with you, probably some of them are more open. When I bring up TikTok to the people that we talk to, everyone laughs and is like moves on to the next topic. I'm being serious. Like there's free views going out there, right?
It's amazing. We lost a piece of business at the Sasha Group last week. Big brand. I won't name the brand. Big brand though. That just was one of these. It's like an orphan brand at one of the bigger holding companies, CPG companies, right? Mm-hmm. And their brief was literally like, we don't have money for paid. We just want to create content on social. And so we built an entire strategy around the way to do that right now is on TikTok. And here are all the ways we're going to show you how to do that. And their procurement called us back and was like, yeah, the brand team just is a little like nervous about TikTok. And it's like, literally that was your brief. It was like, how do I get, with no paid media, how do I get in front of more people and become relevant? It's like, you do that on TikTok. It is literally where culture is starting on the internet right now. And it's like, you're not the right fit for us if you're scared of TikTok. Like, it's not like we were recommending OnlyFans. Like, we were recommending TikTok. Like, it's the number one downloaded app on the internet right now. It's more downloaded right now than Facebook. Like, and so it's mind blowing to me that it's fall 2021 and people are still like, oh, that's that thing that my 13-year-old niece plays on.
And that's the argument is like, no, it's that there's no buyers there. But if there's a guy on TikTok who reprises 80s songs and has a mullet and is just killing it with moms for obvious reasons right now, he's like 18 or 20 or something like that. If that dude is successful, then that's the same demo that you, brand X, are trying to sell is the moms at home. So it's
back to the landscaping example, like, I know for a fact, I don't even have to look it up right now because I've done it for so many industries. There's people teaching financial literacy on TikTok right now. Like, the most boring subject to most average people, banks would never touch because it's so, it's so early, But like, if you're a credit union, if you're a local bank, like, there are creators on there who are teaching what's the difference between, X financial product and Y financial product. Like, they're doing basic financial literacy. And if you don't want to take inspiration from that and create content like that, you could partner up with them. You could find ways to leverage what's going on culture there, even if you're not going to create content necessarily for the platform, even though you should.
Yeah, it's a great point. All of that kind of being a foundation, keep your customer at the center of what you're doing, find cost efficient ways to create, sweat the assets. Is there any companies who you all have worked with that you feel like you could point to and say like, hey, if
Yeah.
you're trying to figure it out, go look at them.
Yeah.
They're doing a good
Yeah.
job.
Absolutely. There's a company called Young Nails. They were our first client. I mentioned consulting as one of our offerings. We have some short-term consulting projects that are $15,000, $30,000 kind of projects. And then we have multi-year consulting projects where we literally become almost a partner in the business, but we have a financial upside in that as
Sure,
well.
sure.
Young Nails was one of those companies. When we started with them, they sold nail salon products direct to nail salons. And so one of the first things we told them, and was you could do that B2B business and you could also be a B2C business and go
Right.
direct to consumer with e-commerce. And the way you do that is by becoming a media company. They went all in on hiring the right talent that they had in terms of content creators and people who could manage these platforms, platform strategists, things like that. The entrepreneur who's the head of the company is charismatic on film. He does a show kind of about the nail salon business and crushes it on LinkedIn and crushes it on TikTok. On TikTok, he was like one of the first beauty brands on TikTok. Young Nails is like one of the most followed beauty brands on TikTok right now, 2+ years later on that platform, where he's selling, nail polish and nail solutions and all these different things. But his B2C business is growing, but it's also helping his B2B.
Because now
And
he's a
so,
brand that these salons want to work with probably or are getting
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. The market is coming to him now. He was one of the first companies to go through this 3-year program that we do. We call Mentors that Maribel, your friend Maribel leads up. And in the 3 years, he went from a $10 million revenue business to a $20 million revenue business by the time the end of that 3 years.
Wow, awesome. So make sure you check them out. We'll link that below as a great example of someone who's doing exactly what Mickey's talking about right now. My last question for you, Mickey, is different, or it's a little bit of a bridge to really our next episode. So this is the last episode in the tactics of creating. And then next week, we're having Kenneth Burke, you know him from Text Request, on to talk about how to create a culture that helps create continuously. So you're not just relying on one hit wonders or things like that. From personal experience in working with you, this is a gift that you have as an individual and as a company. But I've told this story many times. When I was working at Vayner, I was in the account side of things. I had an idea for a piece of creative, and you and the whole team was very supportive of the idea. We did it. It went really well. And that's not normal, especially from an agency standpoint, to like let account person do that. So it's just one example. And so it's personal for me, but how do you think about establishing that culture within Sasha that helps your team cultivate creativity on a continual basis?
Yeah. I mean, culture has got to be, it's religion and to us, like it comes from the top. So it comes straight from Gary, where like ideas can come from anywhere. It was one of the first things he said about this company that we were going to be setting out to build. Ideas can come from anywhere. And so you got to live up to that, meaning you got to give people at bats and shots, whether they're working in accounting or whether they're working on the account side or on the creative team. Like ideas can come from anywhere, and that's got to be true. And you got to live that as a truth. So some of it is just like principles that you will not waver from. And then the other side is giving people, allowing them to take time to do that, and whether that is on a specific project where you can assign, hey, like you did on that one project, we literally had a project where you took it at bat to like write the script, right? And so we made sure that whatever 10% of your time was going to be taken off account stuff to go work on that project for whatever that was, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever that was. The other side is, and I'd love to hear Kenneth's kind of take on this, is that the marketing team in whatever organization you have, whether you're an agency or whether it's a landscaping company, like whoever is responsible for marketing can't be the only content creators. Or you can, but you're going to limit the amount of content they can put out. Therefore, they're going to limit the opportunity that you're going to get from creating content. And so we did a project with the Chattanooga Chamber of Commerce here, where I'm on the executive board and we do some in-kind work for them and things like that as part of kind of a sponsorship package. And one of the projects we did started 2 years ago because of just, again, how awesome LinkedIn organic distribution is right now. We did an audit assessment of everyone that was on the board at the time and all the employees at the Chamber of Commerce. And we just saw who naturally posts the most on LinkedIn. And so then we created a pilot group. So we invited 8 people to be part of this pilot group where we saw, hey, you already post a lot on LinkedIn, or meaning maybe once a week, maybe less, but a general good amount. We're going to set up a program where we're going to give you stories. We're going to give you links to content. We're going to give you images. We're going to give you copy. We're going to set up infrastructure so that you can be posting more and you're sharing great stories about Chattanooga.
Mm.
And so multiple times a week, they'll show up in our LinkedIn messages saying like, hey, here's some content that you can be posting on LinkedIn right now. And it's really easy, just copy and paste and go and post. And so it's a program that we kind of piloted it that way of 8 board members slash, I think it was 6 board members and 2 employees from the chamber. And then now it's like, all right, cool. How do we scale this to where it's a requirement now?
Hmm.
If you're gonna be on the board, you're gonna get access to this content, and you need to be posting whatever it makes sense. Is it once a week? Is it once a month? Whatever that makes sense. But being on part of the board is gonna be sharing good stories about Chattanooga for economic development, for talent, attraction, talent retention. The strides we're making in education, like whatever that might be, to take advantage of LinkedIn organic distribution. I've heard other companies call that like looking at your own company and think about who can be the LinkedIn evangelists of your company, and allowing them to build their personal brand, but also train them and give them content and give an infrastructure that's going to allow it to be easy to post content to take advantage of that organic distribution.
I love that. And it goes back to what you were talking about earlier when you were talking about Canva and these other tools. And that specific example requires almost no real talent aside from you have to write something, but you or whoever this team is providing the assets to the board members, right? So, and then that also allows everyone has their own unique experiences and their own little twist on how they came to Chattanooga or how they interact with the chamber. So, allowing them to add that flavor as well, as opposed to just having Mickey board member, just the marketing board member say everything from your point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Okay,
and there's gonna be more power for it when it's a CEO of a company that is a board member that is posting than if they know, he's the vice chair of marketing for the chamber. That's why he's posting about it.
Right. No, but that's really good. That's a great example. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of these super tactical ideas. I know you have a show where you kind of do this on a regular basis for the Sasha Group. Where can people follow along with that and tell us about that?
Yeah, so that podcast is called Building While Flying, where we interview entrepreneurs just about the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and what they're learning. And so it's not always focused on marketing. It's focused more on kind of the business building side of things, but also we get into marketing, we get into training team members, all things like that. It's something that my co-host Katie Hankinson and we each interview someone, and then we do a little bit of like a post-game recap together. I think we're through 25, 26, 30 episodes, something like that right now.
Yep. And the last episode had a lot of hoops talk in it. So if you're if you're accustomed to that, you should definitely check it out. Well, thanks so much for joining, Mickey. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam.
All right. Thanks so much to Mickey for coming on and just jamming a little bit. I really enjoyed that interview personally. Carlton, what was one of the big takeaways you learned from it?
I kept thinking about when he mentioned it was really that story at the end with the city and trying to equip the people that maybe wouldn't be normal content creators to make it as easy as possible for them to share content. People know how to log in to their social profiles, but a lot of times they don't share because there's so many decisions around what it is they have to share, how they have to say it, what filters or effects they have to do. And then on top of that, it's that time that it takes to create that, aggregating that and making it ready to share is a big hassle too. So if you can do all of that legwork for your team or for people that are related to your team or like your team, even people who might not work for your team, but are just supporters or fans, they'll be much more willing to share that than they were if you just expected them to create things on their own or to notice the one thing and share it. So if you ask them, here's everything, can you please share this? You'll be surprised how many people will jump on board.
I really appreciated that as well. And what's cool is one of the people who was a part of that program, Kenneth Burke, is the director of marketing Text Request. We actually have coming on next week. So we got a chance to ask him a little bit how that worked and being on the other side of it, how much he appreciated it. So I enjoyed that as well. I think I got to work with Mickey, and a lot of people, the thing that I'm going to talk about is the humility that it takes to make great creative or to make creative that impacts. And that word gets thrown around a lot, especially in our space. And sometimes people will look at someone like Gary and say like, oh, humility. Yeah. How's he, but I think it's an intellectual humility. It's not about necessarily, being the most meek, or obviously Gary and VaynerMedia get their name out there quite a bit. Whoever has a good idea or wherever consumer attention is just black and white, they're willing to go there. And so many times people get caught up, whether it be TikTok, whether it be LinkedIn for someone like me who doesn't like that platform, on our own likes or dislikes. And I think it takes that intellectual humility to just put that aside and execute where the audience is. So I really appreciate that about Mickey and his whole team.
Yeah, absolutely. Letting the best content win out. So it's like content meritocracy, when you just put stuff out there and then kind of figure out what the best content is by how people respond.
Well, appreciate, Mickey, you coming on. Carlton, before we let the people go, we need to give them something that we've heard this week that we think will help or entertain or educate them. So you go first. What have you heard this week?
Have you heard of the app poet.so? Does that ring a bell?
No.
So pretty cool. It actually is quite simple. What it does is it just takes a link from Twitter and then it stylizes it with a few options and lets you share it as an image. So it's just an easy way to get the look and the feel of your tweet, and whether you want to post it to Instagram or somewhere else, and lets you download that image to share. So
I see.
Just a
So
simple
it takes
utility.
your text, it takes your copy from the tweet you wrote.
Yeah, and your profile, and gives it
Okay.
the Twitter branding, but then does it on like a cool background and gives you some options for the format, like whether landscape, square, or vertical. And then just you can change a couple of things like text size and background color and stuff. So really
cool.
simple app, but
Yeah.
great idea.
Yeah, very cool. I'll have to check that out. Mine is sticking with the TikTok theme. We have a mutual friend, Thomas Ginsburg, who talk about becoming TikTok famous. I can't remember how many followers. I mean, he's got hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok, and I think his username is the total Tom, but it's THOM. I was gonna say Thom, and it's all about BMW.
All the Thoms out there.
The Thoms. It's all about owning, maintaining, selling, buying, using older BMW and Mercedes cars. So it's like super niche, and it's awesome. He does such a great job with it. We'll have to have him on at some point.
Yeah, it's a great idea
to talk about that. But we'll link that. If you haven't checked out TikTok, a lot of times the question is, how can I use this for my weird niche or my weird business? Like if he can, then you can. So check out what he's doing, and hopefully that'll provide some education there. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's it for this week. We will be back next week with Kenneth Burke, VP of Marketing from Text Request. Listen, we don't ask for anything here. We give free shout outs to everyone basically that we come across in Have You Heard. If you have not given us a 5-star review, specifically on Apple Podcasts, we're not as concerned with other platforms, to be honest, please go and do so, or subscribe to the YouTube. We're pumping out the videos there every week. And until then, we'll see you next time.